everyone. This is Dan from Dan Talks. I'm going to tell you the story about growing up on a little dairy farm in a little town in northeastern Connecticut. I remember my mom telling me that my dad, when I was born, when he heard he had a son, he went out to the street and stopped every single car that went down the street. And he told them he had a son, he had a son. And there I was born. I was born Daniel Stanovich III. And there I was, a young kid, and a while into being an infant, my mother discovered that there was something wrong with my legs and that I couldn't walk. So she and my dad took me all over the United States. I mean, I recall probably going to St. Jude's Clinic in the 60s, and I mean, whatever they could take me to, wherever they could take me, they would take me. And we went to hospital after hospital after hospital, and finally we were at Children's Hospital in Newington, Connecticut, and this is when my life changed. My mother was standing in the x-ray room looking at my x-rays on a wall, and the doctor was explaining to my mother that I may never walk because he couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. At the same time, this tall gentleman who was on his internship at that hospital, just out of college, he comes walking behind my mom and the doctor and looks over their heads because he's 6 foot tall, over 6 feet. And he looks at those x-rays and he says, "I know exactly what's wrong with your child, ma'am." And he has a thing called leg perthes. And I know it because I studied it and did my thesis on it in college. And that changed my whole life on that day. That day, everything changed. Dan was going to walk after that day. So about 4 years, I was in the hospital, and I stayed in that hospital for 6 days a week. And then I had one day that I could come home and see my father. And when I came home and saw my father and my family, they tried to do things with me. And my father rigged up this tractor. So my legs didn't work. He would hold my legs. I'd be on a little surfboard. And there's my dad, my brother and sister. And we drive the tractor around. I think I was 3 or 4 years old at that time. And they wanted me to experience the farm. And we had dairy, and we had pigs and horses, and we were horsemen. And my uncles and aunts all had horses. And we just baled hay and cut corn and milked cows. So that's me on the tractor. I'm driving, and there's me. So you can see in the pictures, my legs are strapped in leather and steel, both holding my legs apart and stretching them out kind of in traction. And there I am eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and there's a 4,000 pound, 3,500 pound horse with my relatives right behind me. They're tromping around, and I'm 6 inches from the ground. It's kind of like the farmer way to grow up, but that's how I grew up. I grew up with horses and cows and so on, but mostly I grew up in a hospital. And the nurse that I had was Mrs. Wovelin, and I loved her to death. She was like my mom. And my doctor, which I don't recall his name, was like my dad. And I had therapy and shots and things every day, and I ate my 3 meals there. I went to nursery school and kindergarten and part of first grade in the hospital. And that's what I look like in first grade right there. That's what I look like. So as I grew up, as I got older, and I went to public school, people picked on me because I had crutches and I had, a little bit of a limp, and I wasn't like the rest of the kids. So I got picked on terribly all through, I'd say all the way up until 6th grade, I was picked on. I was in the picked on class, and everybody else was cool. And I was one of the, I guess you call them nerdies or whatever you want to call them these days. But anyway, I was one of those kids. So like in 6th or 7th grade, I decided, I gotta figure out how I'm gonna get into high school and not get picked on. So I started hanging out and talking to different people, and I realized real quick that you can't be a jock, you can't be a greaser, which like cars, and you can't be a computer geek, and you can't be in a business. You can't be in one of them. You got to be in all of them. So I said, what can I do to make my life different? So there's me in high school. That's me in high school, and probably my senior picture, and that's my dune buggy I made. And of course it says Heineken on the back, and I got Daytona Beach, little derby on my head. Look at that kid with the long hair. That's me. It doesn't look like it now, but that's me. But So I worked my way through the school, and I eventually became the president of my class. I mean, I was the vice president in the senior year, and then the president moved to Italy, and I became the president. I run all the reunions and do a lot of stuff with the class, and I have a great class of 78. So there's another picture. So I got into drama. I was in drama, and this picture was when I was 15. Now, my father had brain cancer, and he went into a coma right around when I was 15. And he came to that show, and he was so thrilled with me dressing up in my grandmother's clothes. And that's all Western stuff. That's all, I don't know if you would call it, it's like a glitter kind of material. It was bright green. And I dressed up and I sang "Here We Go Again" with, or "Here We Come Again" with Dolly Parton. And I got the little mustache on there to prove it. But I sang that on the stage. My father laughed so hard, he paid $100 for his ticket. Now, $100 in 1976 was something, you know, and they all remembered that my dad paid that $100 for that ticket. He just laughed. My mom said he never laughed so hard in his life. And my grandmother dressed in those clothes. Those were her clothes. And she made leather suit jackets and leather chaps for movie stars and very famous people. And that's what we did. And we had a big store. It was a big tack shop and store on our farm. It was called the Standard Ridge Square and Tack Shop. And some of you might know it. Some of you people might know of that place. And she made stuff for like Johnny Cash and Buck Owens and people like that. She made their clothes and their chaps. And she was really well known in the leather industry. So anyway, growing up like that as a kid and coming through and becoming a teenager and getting my license. And now my dad is sick, and here I am. I'm dressed up. I got a Bradley GT. I'm at this old ancient gas station. I staged the whole thing. In another picture at another time, I'll show you that I had the gas set up at 22 cents a gallon. And of course, I'm driving on a dealer plate. It's my father's dealership, and he's sick in a coma in a hospital, and he's sick. And I'm driving around on his dealer plate and driving these fancy cars. And so it comes like, you get picked on, and all of a sudden you get involved in the photography club. You become a photographer. You hang out with the greasers. You hang out with the jocks, and you hang out with different people. And here I am working on my Comet Caliente. That's my car. I blew the transmission in it. I blew the rear end in it actually that time, and I was changing the rear end. So you know, you learn all these things when you're a farmer and you're on the farm. Not only do you know where milk comes from, and not only do you know how a tractor runs or how a backhoe or a bulldozer runs, and you can run them, but you also know how to work on things and fix things and use your head and be out of the box with your thinking and make sure you can fix something and make it work. I've done that my whole life. This is a picture of a kid I grew up with. His name was Moonface Bear. You can Google him. They called him the Cigarette Indian, and he was a Patageesic, and he had a tribe right across the street from our farm. And that's my horse, Weejan's Gem. We called her Wee Wee. And his horse is Thunder Runner. And you know, Moonface and I used to ride in the back, on the back 500 acres around the back of the house and down by the reservoir. And we used to ride a lot, and we had a lot of fun, and we grew up together. We became best friends, and all the way up until he died. He died at a young age. I don't think he made it to 30. He was just a good guy. I got to look that up for you. But a good guy, and he inspired me. I wrote a book. I'm writing this novel about Indians and their existing with the people in America and how things are today. So I've got that book going too. So I'm working on that. So all these things. This is titled Dan Walks Through Life. I mean, all these things are like overcoming huge objects. I mean, being picked on and not being able to walk and just stumbling over things all the time. Well, there's a picture of me in one of my dune buggies. I love these dune buggies, and so didn't everybody else. You know, I parked next to a Ferrari. I got all the people standing around my dune buggy. They just love these kind of cars. And this is an old Volkswagen Power. This is probably a 65 or a 63 chassis with a fiberglass Mannix body on it. And I built that. I built that from the ground up. I made that and built it, and I had someone paint it, and I put it all back together again. And I just drove that. I love driving those in the summer. I still have those cars to this day. So moving on, we covered a lot of ground here today, and we'll go back, and I'll tell you stories about different parts of my life and things, going to California at 16, 17 years old and picking up a truck and coming back. And when someone stole my father's truck, I had to run out there and grab it and bring it back for my mom. All these different stories we'll talk about on Dan Talks. I just want to kind of give you part of my life to inspire you and to make you understand that you can overcome anything. You can make it through anything. So Anyway, to make a long story short, we're going to continue forward. So now today, everything you do when you're young and as you grow up, from when you remember, when you don't remember, shapes you for who you are today. So who I am today, I'm a very, very empathetic, caring person. So I do a lot of fundraising for St. Jude's. I think I've raised close to $100,000 so far for St. Jude's. And I've done it, I think I've done it for 4 or 5 years now. And I do it through the National Auctioneers Association. And we just have these great auctions, and we raise money and people match money. And I'm up on the podium auctioning things off, and people are throwing money up at me just to support the cause, because I know what it's like to be in a hospital on Christmas Day. I know what it's like to be in a hospital on Christmas Eve. And I know what it's like to not get the new bike and not get the new tractor with the pedals, because you don't have legs to move them. So you don't get that. You get a little rubber ball with some jacks, or you get a checkers game, or a couple books, or maybe a Hot Wheels car. Everybody else gets all that great stuff that you can do with your legs. But this is all overcoming that, and getting the peace of mind that you can overcome anything. And there's always someone worse off and always someone better off. So be happy for what you have and be happy for who you are. That's so important. And I think that's going to be what we're going to talk about today. And I kind of give you a roundabout way to see somebody who's come from a crippled kid who was born on a farm. And now I've traveled the entire world. I've seen so many great people, famous, unfamous, just great people out there, and enjoyed so much of this world. I just want to share that with you and let you know that when Dan talks, you can listen. Thank you.